everyone, my name is Pragya Devan and you're watching Voice News Network, and I'm particularly excited today because I have with me Ms. Rani Dhaliwal, Senior Vice President Transformation at Humber College. She has contributed immensely to bring University of Guelph Humber to Brampton, an initiative which is happening right now. Thank you, Ms. Rani, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here today.
So, Rani, can you give me a more high-level insight on what University of Guelph Humber is?
It's a very good question. It's one of those areas that most people know a little about, but not enough about. 20 years ago, University of Guelph Humber was formed by two institutions coming together, the University of Guelph and Humber, to provide integrated programming. So that meant, back 20 years ago, it was a very unique offering. That meant that you graduate as a student with a degree from University of Guelph, as well as a diploma from Humber. There's nothing like that back then, and there's nothing like that today. So in 4 years, you get a joint degree. We have 5,000 students in 7 different areas of study, and that program has been, many institutions have come to see it and talk to us, but nobody's been able to replicate it. So as we look at now moving this opportunity to Brampton, we'll be looking to working with the local communities, local industries to understand what those future programs that will be required. But the value of the University of Guelph Humber is you get these two credentials in 4 years.
Oh, wow, that sounds really interesting.
It is very unique.
So, Rani, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have worked really hard in bringing the University of Guelph Humber to downtown Toronto, Brampton. So, what was the idea behind this?
Well, when you take a look at the history and the development of University of Guelph Humber, it's been in operation for 20 years. It's outgrown its size, and it has an enrollment of about 5,000 students. So really, the opportunity is to relocate, look at this opportunity of relocation of that campus from where it exists today to the heart of Brampton, which will really revitalize the Brampton Centre, but also the greater Brampton area. It will mean jobs, it will mean great opportunities for the community.
So what would it mean for the community?
Yeah, any time when you take a look at any time that a university enters into a city, it not only provides jobs, it provides economic strength to the community, it provides social, educational, arts, areas that develop. It attracts industries from a talent perspective. So many opportunities as we look at ensuring that the value of University of Guelph Humber is also valued by the students and also by the greater community.
So why Brampton?
Good location. So good location, period. Post 2024, the demographics that are shared by the province really indicate that the population is going to be considerably increasing. It's grown by about 20% in the last 10 years. It's projected to grow somewhere between 15 to 20% in the next 10 years and the 10 years following that. And as we all know, from a newcomer basis, from new immigrant basis, this is for the South Asian community one key area of entry, one key area where our community settles in as well.
So, Rani, I want to delve more into your professional and educational journey in Canada. How has it been for you to be from an immigrant family and to live in Canada?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question, because for me it's quite an emotional connection to what the UGH project is as well. Context would be, my father, who was from Punjab, recognized that he could not provide us with the value education that he wanted to. So he uprooted and came to England. So we spent 10 years in England, my brothers and I, and went to school in England. And then we came to Canada as a vacation, and he saw that this was also a greater land of opportunity from a job and living life perspective. So he uprooted twice, he and of course my mother. And I can't, that's his legacy. He always has encouraged education, purely because he only did matriculation and he didn't have the opportunity as well. But certainly he also understood that education was a gateway to future accomplishments. So that was, I would say, the legacy of my father. He made all the sacrifices, and all we had to do was study. So with that education, when I came to Canada, I went to university, became an accountant. I would say the rest is kind of history. You know, I didn't have any mentors, so there weren't any brown girls like me that I could talk to, or women that would guide me. Education was the foundation, a strong foundation that provided me with various opportunities, and really have enjoyed the whole journey of how I got to where I've got to. But it was, you know, everything requires effort.
Yeah.
And I would say I worked hard. There were no easy doors opened.
Yeah. No
there was no
shortcuts.
networking, you know. There was no mentor, as I said. And I was competing with, I would say, male white counterparts. So different time than it is today. And I'm really so pleased to see our community and in general the generations do so well in entering other fields, just even beyond just like, you know, we typically think of doctors, lawyers, engineers, and accountants. I'm so pleased to see our community do so well in some of the other areas like journalism, like media, like film and industry, like the social services. So.
That brings me to my next question. As you mentioned that you were, you know, a brown girl who was, you know, competing with the white male people in terms of getting the job that you want. You work with Humber, and Humber is one of the prestigious colleges in Canada, and you work at such a senior level position. Being a South Asian woman, being on this position is something not everyone can achieve. So what was your motivation behind this?
And I would say, and this talks to, you know, my father's legacy. He always made us feel that you can do anything. And hence there was no barrier in my thinking in terms of progression. So if I was in competition with people whose habits were different from mine, it was competition. But I was always well prepared. You know, I never let you know, any question unanswered in my mind before I went into a meeting. So it was hard work, and anytime you're working hard, you know, you do get the results. And I think I was very fortunate. I think, as I said, there were no doors open for me. It was hard work, and but I had a significant support from my family, from my parents, from my in-laws, from my spouse, my husband, Harjeet, without whom I could not have done what I did.
So were there times when you thought that, okay, I'm not able to do it and I should go back to like India, or like, you know, amongst your own people?
Yeah, no, I was 7 when I came from India. So for me, my home has been first England, you know, first India, but then we left, and then England, and then here in Canada. And when you settle, you know, for the journey of a new immigrant is settlement.
Yeah.
My parents made all the largest sacrifices. They worked hard to put, you know, give us shelter, give us food, give us all the opportunities. And as I said, all we had to do was education. So never in my mind did I think about going back to India, because this country is a great land of opportunity. What I have thought about, though, is how do I give back to such a great country and to help those that are in need. And I do a fair amount of volunteer work in the not-for-profit areas, in education, in women, in children and health. So the thought didn't occur to me. I always look at how do I give back to the communities that I live in.
And you also mentioned like there is a lot of difference in the time when you started out, and now you see a lot of new immigrants in Canada. Can you elaborate more on the difference?
Yeah, so growing up, even going to school or university, I did not see anybody that looked like me. Right? So even social interactions, music, arts, you know, clothes, food. You know, I recall even when I got married, my mother and father, you know, they and a few of our friends, they made everything. Like we used to make everything from whether it's a samosa or it's barfi or it's, you know, other things. So from not having the community and the richness of our community around to now, which we have a wealth of richness.
Yeah.
You know, we have the social, we have the media, we have information, we have social services for our community. It's like a night and day impact. So I think for a new immigrant, the journeys are very similar, but I would say when it was, you know, when we came here, you weren't accepted as easily on the one hand, especially for my parents. I think they had the toughest go at this, but they made that sacrifice for us, and I would say we benefited. And certainly now it's our opportunity to give back, and our children, my children, have benefited. So it is a settlement journey for an immigrant, and I see now new immigrants coming and going through the similar journey that my parents went through.
So how do you stay connected to the Indian roots?
Yeah, so that's interesting. One is, as I said, I learned actually a lot from my children. They were surrounded by more, let's say, a South Asian community than I was. So the music part, my husband in particular is very connected to the community, and so various modes and ways through him. I would say between work and family life, in my life in particular, there hasn't been too much other time. I've always enjoyed Indian music. There was a time I wanted to learn Bharatnatyam, and I wanted to learn to play the sitar. So maybe I'll at least resurrect maybe learning an Indian instrument as I look forward to the next stage of my life. But yeah, social circles, social events. But I think on the education front is where I'm perhaps more focused on in terms of connecting to our community. Is I really want to help students and international students. I speak to a number of them and help them and guide them and mentor them, because I lacked a mentor, and I think if anything I can do is impart some of my knowledge and leave it up to them as to how they want to take that.
So Rani, after working for almost 42 years, you have decided to retire now. So I want to ask, what are your future plans?
Yeah, so they say you should always have a plan as you make some major changes in your life. And I've talked to many retired folks, and frankly, I want to give back. I want to give back in a meaningful way. And for me, that's in the areas of not-for-profits, in the areas, as I mentioned, being on boards where I feel I can really add knowledge or provide my knowledge and experience. And I've always been interested in board governance. It's a credential that I got many years ago, and I want to apply that a little bit more. But fundamentally, I think the legacy of my father, the vision of my father is to, is in the education sector. And that's why this project that we're working on, the University of Guelph Humber and the relocation of it, is so important to me. Like my parents provided the opportunity to 3 children, my siblings and myself. And I've been fortunate enough to work in the Peel District School Board and Humber to actually create some impact to education. And now it's like providing so many newcomers, so many domestic students with a greater opportunity in education. And University of Guelph Humber has a very unique program that will do that.
Yeah. So before I let you go, Rani, tell me what message you would want to give to new immigrants to Canada, especially young women, who want to start out their careers in Canada, and you being an inspiration, what would be your message to them?
I would say not to have any internal barriers in your mind. Don't say, I can't do this. Look at the opportunities that your vision for yourself provides, and networking. I mean, that's what we all need to do today, and connect. I think there are enough today. There are enough females of various backgrounds that are open and willing to mentor and help. So that would be one. I think resilience. So women have to be a little bit more stronger, just given some of our upbringing and some of the norms of our culture, and a very valuable culture that it is. So don't give up. Don't have any barriers for yourself.
I think it's a wonderful insight, and I think a lot of young women especially would benefit from whatever you have told us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.